Hello everyone, welcome back to Sulekha Physics classes. It is the most easiest way to learn all the concept of physics through this class. Hope you all are doing well. Today I am going to start one short revision of chapter 11, that is dual nature of radiation and matter. From this chapter modern physics started. After these atoms, next chapter, and then nuclei. All these three chapters comes under modern physics, and all these three chapters are very easy. All are theoretical portion and easy to score marks. All these three chapters includes 12 marks. So it's very easy to score 12 marks from these three chapters. These are very small chapters, right? So must revise all these three chapters one by one. Okay. So as the name suggests, dual nature of radiation and matter. What does it mean? Dual means two. It means two nature of radiation and matter. What is this? You know, radiation means light. You know, in the previous chapter you studied about interference, diffraction. All these are explained on the basis of wave nature of light, wave nature of radiation. That is one nature. But in this chapter we will prove that this radiation has also particle nature with the help of experiment, that is photoelectric effect, right? It means radiation has two nature. Sometimes it behaves like wave and sometimes it behaves like particle. It has two nature. This is called dual nature of radiation. Then after that, if radiation has two nature, dual nature, it means this matter has also two nature. You know, matter is a particle. So one nature is particle nature. But if radiation has two nature, wave and particle, then matter also has particle as well as wave nature. It was given by, this concept was given by de Broglie, and experimentally it was proved by Davisson and German experiment, right? So, but for this year, this Davisson and German experiment is not in your syllabus, it is deleted for this year. So, no need to discuss these things, only just what is this dual nature of matter, who suggested this one, if it has wave nature, what is the wavelength associated with wave nature of matter, everything we will discuss one by one, right? So before starting this chapter, in this chapter main important topic is photoelectric effect. What is photoelectric effect? What are different terms related to this photoelectric effect? How this is explained? Right? So we will discuss all these topics one by one. But before starting this photoelectric effect, you must know that in metals, the electrons in the outermost shell are loosely bounded. They can freely move around the nucleus of an atom, but they cannot leave the metal surface. To leave the metal surface, they require some minimum amount of energy, and that minimum amount of energy is called work function. How you define work function? It is denoted by W naught. Its symbol is W naught or phi naught. It is minimum amount of energy required by an electron to just escape from the metal surface. And this work function depends on nature of the metal, conditions of this metal surface, and this work function is measured in electron volt, right? It is the unit of energy, work function. It is a form of energy and its unit is electron volt. And you must know that in 1 electron volt, 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 joule. So you must remember this relation. It helps in calculation, right? So minimum amount of energy required by electron to emit from the metal surface is called work function, and this electron emission from the metal surface, this process is called electron emission, right? Emission of electrons from a metal surface. And for emission, how much energy is required by the electron? Energy of electron must be greater than this one, work function, or W naught or phi naught, right? Now, what are different methods of electron emission? First one is thermionic emission, second one is field emission, and third one is photoelectric emission. In thermionic emission, electrons are emitted by heating a metal surface. When metal surface is heated, electron gets sufficient thermal energy and it starts leaving the metal surface. This process is called thermionic emission of electrons by heating a metal surface, and the emitted electrons are called thermoelectrons. Next is field emission. When a metal surface is subjected to a strong electric field, electrons are emitted from the metal surface. This process is called field emission, but this process is a little bit dangerous. Okay, then last one is photoelectric emission. It means emission of electrons when the light of suitable frequency falls on the metal surface. This process is called photoelectric emission. Photo means light, and the emitted electrons are called photoelectrons. In this way, electrons are emitted from the metal surface, thermionic emission, field emission and photoelectric emission. So, before starting the main topic of this chapter, that is photoelectric effect, you must know about work function and what are different methods for electron emission. Please take a screenshot of this one, then we will start main topic, photoelectric effect, right? Now, before starting photoelectric effect, you must know about quantum theory. According to Planck's quantum theory, light or electromagnetic waves always travel in the form of discrete packets of energy. Discrete means fixed packets or bundles of energy, and this discrete packets of energy is called quanta or photon. So what is photon? According to Planck's quantum theory, electromagnetic waves or light travels in the form of small packets or bundles of energy, and that bundles of energy is called photon. Now what are different properties of photon? First is it travels with speed of light. It always travels with a speed of light. What is speed of light? C equal to 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. Second one is energy of each photon is given by E equal to h nu. H is called Planck's constant, nu is frequency, and in terms of wavelength, nu is what? C by lambda. So h C by lambda, this is the energy of each photon, right? E equal to h nu or h c by lambda. Also, rest mass of photon is 0. It means photon never exists at rest. It exists only when it is in motion, right? Rest mass is always 0. Next is momentum of each photon. It is given by, momentum is what? P equal to mass into velocity. So it moves with the speed of light. So P equal to mc, or using Einstein's mass energy relation, E equal to mc square. From there you get P equal to E by C. And what is E? E is h nu. So you can also write P equal to h nu by C, or in place of nu you write C by lambda. So it becomes h by lambda. So these are different forms of momentum. You must remember this formula is helpful when you solve numericals. P equal to h nu by C or h by lambda. Last property of photon is it is electrically neutral. Neutral means it is not deflected by electric and magnetic field. So these are different properties of photon. It is helpful when we discuss photoelectric effect. In that one, when a light of suitable frequency falls on the metal surface, then by the absorption of that light, electrons are emitted from the metal surface. That electrons are photoelectrons, and this process is called photoelectric effect. So when light falls on the metal surface, in which it means there is an interaction between this radiation and matter. In that case, we assume that light consists of small packets of energy, that is called photon, and that photon interacts with the metal surface, and that electron gains that photon energy and it gets emitted from the metal surface. Okay, so please take a screenshot of this one, then we will discuss photoelectric effect. Now next is photoelectric effect. What is photoelectric effect? It is the phenomena of emission of electrons from the metal surface when light of sufficiently high frequency incident on the metal surface. This process is called photoelectric effect. Suppose this is a metal surface, right? This one is metal surface, okay? And when light of sufficiently high frequency falls on this metal surface, it emits electrons from the electrons are emitted from this metal surface. This process is called photoelectric emission, and the emitted electrons are called photoelectrons. So you can write in this way: the phenomena of emission of electrons from metal surface when a light of sufficiently high frequency means low wavelength, incident on it means metal surface, and the emitted electrons is called photoelectrons. It is a one-to-one process. One-to-one means, suppose light falls on this metal surface in the form of bundles of packets of energy. We already discussed that bundles of energy is called photon. So when one photon falls on this metal surface, then only ejects one electron. If two photons falls on the metal surface, it ejects two electrons. If three photon falls on the metal surface, it means three electrons. And photon is related to the intensity of light. Greater the intensity of light, it means greater number of photons. It means large number of electrons emitted from the metal surface. So it is a one-to-one process. One photon, it emits only one electron. Two photon, it emits two electron. Three photon, it emits three electron, in this way, right? So you can say that the photoelectrons emitted depends on what? Intensity of light. Intensity is related to number of photons. How many number of photons is incident on the metal surface? So intensity is related to number of photons, and ejection of electrons, this photoelectrons, it is number of photoelectrons, number of electrons depends on directly proportional to intensity of light, right? Intensity of incident radiation. Greater is the intensity of incident radiation, greater number of electrons ejected from the metal surface, and also number of electrons is independent of frequency. You must remember these points: independent of frequency, right? Number of photoelectrons ejected depends only on intensity of incident radiation. It is independent of frequency. These 2 points are very important. Hope you understood photoelectric effect. Now this is experimental setup for the study of photoelectric effect, right? It consists of an evacuated glass tube. This is an evacuated glass tube, and one window is at the upper side of the glass tube so that light enters inside this glass tube, right? And also this evacuated glass tube consists of two plates. One plate is photosensitive, right? And another plate is called collector plate. Photosensitive plate, it is also called cathode, or you can say emitter, because when light of sufficiently high frequency falls on this photosensitive plate, this plate absorbs that energy of photon and emits equal amount of electron from this photosensitive plate. So that's why it is also called emitter, and it's also called cathode. Then the electrons emitted by this photosensitive plate is collected by another metal plate. It is called collector, and these two ends of the plates are connected to a high tension battery and a potential divider, right? This battery is used to accelerate the electrons emitted by the photosensitive plate, and again due to the movement of these electrons, this electrons is called photoelectrons. It generates current in the circuit due to the movement of photoelectrons. So that current is measured by microammeter because its amount is very small, and the potential difference between these plates due to the movement of photoelectrons is measured by a voltmeter. Voltmeter is connected to this parallel to this one, and it is connected in series with the metal plates, right? So this is experimental setup. Now there are different observations based on these experiments. What happens when intensity of light increases? Then what is the effect on photoelectrons ejected, number of photoelectrons, and number of photoelectrons is related to current flows in the circuit. What happens if frequency is changed? What happens when potential difference is increased with the help of this battery? So there are different observations based on these experiments. So first take a screenshot of this one. After that we will discuss different observations, right? First observation is effect of intensity on photoelectric current. What happens if light of different intensity falls on the photosensitive plate, but its frequency is fixed and also potential difference due to this high tension battery applied between these metal plates is also kept fixed. If this positive end is connected to this one collector, it means this end is positive. So what happens when light of suitable high frequency and fixed frequency falls on these photosensitive plates, due to this positive metal plates, it attracts the electron towards itself, and photoelectrons start moving towards this metal plate and is collected by the collector. Now, if a light of some intensity falls on this photosensitive plate, you know intensity is related to what? Number of photons, because light falls on this metal surface in the form of bundles or packets of energy. That bundles or packets of energy is called photon, and photoelectric effect is a one-to-one process. If one photon falls, then it ejects only one electron, and photon is related to intensity. It means higher the intensity, higher number of photoelectrons emitted by this photosensitive plate. So rate of emission of photoelectrons is directly proportional to intensity of incident radiation. And you know, rate of emission of electron means greater the number of electrons flows through this circuit, higher is the photoelectric current produced in the circuit. It means photoelectric current is directly proportional to intensity of incident radiation. So a graph is plotted between intensity of light along x-axis and photoelectric current along y-axis. If you increase the intensity, photoelectric current also increases. So graph is linear starting from the origin. Graph is like this one. This is the graph between intensity and photoelectric current. Greater the intensity of incident light, greater intensity means greater number of photons falls on the metal surface, greater number of electrons ejected, and greater number of electrons means greater is the photoelectric current. So intensity increases, photoelectric current also increases. It is independent on frequency of incident radiation, and also here potential difference is kept fixed. If potential changes, then what is the effect on this photoelectric current? We will discuss in second observation. So please take a screenshot of this one first. Now, second observation is effect of potential on photoelectric current. First, we already discussed about what is the effect of intensity on photoelectric current. Intensity increases, photoelectric current also increases. Now, here for the intensity is kept fixed and also frequency is kept fixed. Now, increase the potential. Now, what is the effect of potential on photoelectric current? Initially, when potential is zero, when this key is open, then what happens? Due to the random motion of electrons inside this evacuated glass tube, there is some small amount of current. So here at zero potential, suppose current is there. Now if we increase the positive potential, this and positive terminal of this battery is connected to this collector. So it means you are providing here positive potential. Now you increase the positive potential, greater the potential, greater number of electrons emitted by this photosensitive plate are collected by the collector. It means greater the potential, greater is the photoelectric current. So if you increase the positive potential, photoelectric current also increases. Then after some time, it reaches to saturation value. Why? For a particular intensity of light, number of photons is fixed. If you increase the positive potential, it collects all the number of photoelectrons. For a fixed number of photons, number of photoelectrons emitted is also fixed. When it collects all the photoelectrons, there is no more photoelectrons to collect here, right? It means now if you increase the positive potential, current remains constant. This is saturation current, right? Again, next time you decrease the potential. It means negative terminal is connected to this side. This end becomes negative. Now what happens? Due to negative side is this one, potential decreases, then this negative repels the electrons and no more electrons coming towards the collector. Current starts decreasing. So if you increase the negative potential, current starts decreasing, and after a certain time all electrons are repelled by this negative potential. It means no current is there. It means at a certain potential V0, current becomes 0, and the current potential at which the photocurrent becomes 0 is called stopping potential. You can define stopping potential. You can also say cutoff potential. V0 is the retarding potential. You can say negative potential at which photoelectric current becomes 0, right? So this is the graph between potential and current. Now if you increase the intensity of light, for a fixed intensity, graph is like this one. If you increase the intensity of light, again what happens? Greater intensity means greater number of photons. It means here saturation point is more. Current starts from here. Here again current increases with the increase in positive potential. Here saturation current is more than initial. Right now, again if you decrease the potential, current starts decreasing, and this current becomes 0 at this potential called stopping potential. Here you observe that whether you increase the intensity of light, again suppose there is again another graph for I3. Here I3 is also greater than I2, or I2 is greater than I1. If you increase the intensity of light, saturation current increases but stopping potential remains same. It means this stopping potential is independent of intensity of light. Stopping potential is represented by V0 and it is independent of intensity of light. It only depends on frequency of light. So we will discuss next observation, effect of frequency on photoelectric current. Here this stopping potential means work done to stop the electrons. So work done by this stopping potential to stop the fastest electron is nothing but kinetic energy, maximum kinetic energy of electron. So there is one expression, maximum kinetic energy of electron is equal to work done by the stopping potential to stop the fast moving electrons, EV0. This is the relation between stopping potential and kinetic energy. This maximum kinetic energy is equal to EV0. V0 is a stopping potential. You must remember this one. So this stopping potential depends only on kinetic energy, and kinetic energy means frequency, but this stopping potential is independent of intensity of light. Here for all intensity of light, stopping potential is same, right? So hope you understood this one. Please take a screenshot, then we will discuss next what is the effect of this stopping potential on frequency, right? Okay. Third observation is effect of frequency of incident radiation on stopping potential, right? We already discussed in the second observation what happens when potential increases, photoelectric current also increases right now and reaches a saturation value for a fixed intensity of light, and if potential decreases then it reaches a potential at which current becomes 0. This potential is called stopping potential right now. Okay, this stopping potential is independent of intensity of light, right? If you increase the intensity or decrease the intensity, it does not affect on the stopping potential. But if you increase the frequency of incident radiation, increase the frequency means what? Kinetic energy of the electrons increases. It means more amount of potential, greater potential is required to stop the electron. It means stopping potential increases. If frequency increases, kinetic energy of the electrons increases because frequency is directly related to kinetic energy, and if kinetic energy of electrons increases, then more amount of potential is required to stop the electrons so that the current becomes 0. It means stopping potential also increases. So with the increase in frequency, stopping potential also increases. So graph is like this one, but saturation current remains same, right? Stopping potential increases with the increase in frequency, right? If you increase the frequency here, mu3 is greater than mu2, mu2 is greater than mu1, then potential for mu3 V03, for mu2 V02, for mu1 V01. It also increases with the increase in frequency. So these two are directly related, right? This one is third observation. Hope you understood. Then one more last observation. Please take a screenshot of this one first. Now, last observation is effect of stopping potential with frequency of incident radiation. We discussed the third observation that if you increase the frequency, then a stopping potential also increases. It means if you plot a graph between a stopping potential and frequency, you get a straight line. Here I have drawn a graph for two metals A and metal B, and the graph this side is stopping potential, along x-axis frequency of incident radiation, and the graph between stopping potential and frequency is a straight line. Stopping potential is directly proportional to frequency of incident radiation. If you increase the frequency, stopping potential also increases linearly. But here you find that there is a minimum frequency below which no photoelectric emission takes place. Here the graph starts from this point, not from the origin. This minimum value of frequency below which no photoelectric emission takes place, that frequency is called threshold or cutoff frequency. Here for two different metals, this threshold or cutoff frequency is different. This mu naught is what? Threshold frequency, or you can say cutoff frequency. It is the minimum value of frequency below which no photoelectric emission takes place. It means photoelectric stops altogether below this. It means there is a certain minimum frequency above which only photoelectric emission takes place. So it's just simple. Graph is a straight line. Just take a screenshot of this one. After this, we will discuss on the basis of these observations laws of photoelectric emission. Now, laws of photoelectric emission. On the basis of experimental study on photoelectric effect, Leonard and Millikan gave the following laws of photoelectric emission. First one is, for a given metal and frequency of incident radiation, it means frequency is fixed, and for a particular photosensitive metal, number of photoelectrons emitted is directly proportional to intensity of light. If you increase the intensity of light, number of photons also increases and increases photoelectric current. We discussed in first observation. Greater the intensity, greater is the number of photoelectrons emitted, and greater is the photoelectric current. So for a fixed frequency, number of photoelectrons emitted is directly proportional to intensity of light, right? First observation. Second, for a given metal, there exists a certain minimum frequency below which no emission of photoelectrons takes place, and that frequency is called threshold frequency. If frequency is more than that minimum value threshold frequency, then only photoelectric emission takes place, below which no photoelectric emission takes place. That minimum frequency is called threshold frequency, right? Then third one, above threshold frequency only photoelectric emission takes place, and the stopping potential or maximum kinetic energy, both are related now. Kinetic energy is equal to EV naught. So stopping potential or maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons is independent of intensity of light, but only depends on frequency of incident light. We have drawn the graph between stopping potential and this frequency. If you increase the frequency of light, stopping potential also increases lighter, but it is independent on intensity of light. Third observation, I think. So stopping potential or maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons is independent of intensity of light, only depends on frequency of light. And then the last one, photoelectric emission is an instantaneous process, one-to-one process. There is no time lag between incidence of light and emission of photoelectrons. So it is an instantaneous process. It means the time lag between incidence of light, radiation, and emission of photoelectrons is very small, right? There is no time lag between incidence of light, radiation, and emission of photoelectrons, right? So on the basis of that experimental study of photoelectric effect, there are 4 laws of photoelectric emission. Okay, please take a screenshot of this one. Then we will discuss Einstein's photoelectric equation. Now, Einstein's photoelectric equation. What is this? According to Einstein, he explained photoelectric effect on the basis of Planck's quantum theory. What is this Planck's quantum theory? According to this theory, light always travels in the form of small bundles or packets of energy, and that bundles of energy is called photon. Right? Energy of each photon is given by h nu. Suppose this is a metal surface, okay? This one is metal surface. Suppose a photon of incident radiation falls on this metal surface. Energy of each photon is h nu. Now, a part of this h nu, some of the energy is utilized in liberating electrons from this metal surface, and that is equal to work function, and remaining amount of incident photon energy is utilized in increasing kinetic energy of this electron, right now. So by conservation of energy of incident photon, which is h nu, is equal to work function of metal, amount of energy required to liberate electrons from the metal surface W naught, and remaining energy is used to increase kinetic energy of the electron, that is K, maximum kinetic energy, K max, right? So from here, K max is equal to h nu minus W naught, or you can write maximum kinetic energy is what? It is dependent on stopping potential, right? So it is equal to EV naught. And then it is equal to h nu minus work function is what? H nu naught. Nu naught is stopping potential, okay? This V naught is stopping potential and nu naught is cutoff frequency. So this equation K max equal to EV naught equal to h nu minus h naught nu naught is called Einstein's photoelectric equation. In terms of wavelength, you can write nu equal to what? C by lambda. So this K max equal to EV naught equal to h. C you take common, right now C by lambda naught. Then this C is common, 1 by lambda minus 1 by lambda naught. This is photoelectric equation, and this equation is used to explain photoelectric emission effect. How? From this equation, we find that it is this interaction of photon and electron is one-to-one process. If one intensity is such that it has only one photon, then one photon eject only one electron. If two photons, then two electrons. So it is a one-to-one process. It means number of photons is directly proportional to what? Number of photoelectrons ejected, and number of photons is related to what? Intensity. So in this way, number of photoelectrons is directly proportional to intensity of light. This explains photoelectric effect, right now, laws of photoelectric. Now second one, here it's clear that kinetic energy is directly proportional to frequency, right? If you increase the frequency, then kinetic energy also increases. This also explains photoelectric laws. Then third one is, from this equation, is incident photon frequency is less than threshold or cutoff frequency, then this kinetic energy becomes negative, which is not possible. So if nu is always greater than nu naught, cutoff frequency, to eject electrons from the metal surface. This is also according to laws of photoelectric effect. Now last one is this photon electron interaction is an instantaneous process, right? There is no time lag between incidence of photon and emission of electron. This also explains laws of photoelectric effect. So this photoelectric equation, we come to the conclusion that this equation clearly explains all laws of photoelectric effect. So this equation is also important from examination point of view, Einstein's photoelectric equation, and from this equation, with the help of this equation, we can determine Planck's constant and work function. How? First you take a screenshot of this one, then we will discuss that one, okay? Now, determination of Planck's constant work function from photoelectric equation. Photoelectric equation is what? K max equal to h nu minus h nu naught, and K max is what? E V naught, where V naught is stopping potential. It is equal to h nu minus h nu naught is work function. So from here, V naught equal to h by E mu minus W by E. Compare this equation with a straight line equation. What is straight line equation? Y equal to mx plus c. And when you compare these equation 1 and 2, then this slope is equal to h by e. Slope of this, when you plot a graph between V naught and frequency, stopping potential frequency, you know na, when you increase the frequency, stopping potential also increase, we already discussed. So graph is a straight line, and from the graph we find slope, and here in this equation slope is what? H by E. Slope is h by e, and from graph also we can find slope of this straight line is what? AC by BC. Slope is AC, sorry, here AC by BC. So this slope is equal to h by e, and from here h is equal to what? E into slope. We can easily find slope from this graph, multiply by e, it gives Planck's constant. So we can easily determine Planck's constant from this equation, right? Now work function. Now intercept of, from, if you compare these two equations, intercept is what? W naught by E. C is intercept, it is equal to minus W naught by E, and W naught is equal to E into intercept. How you find intercept? You can find intercept from this graph. This one is the intercept. You can easily find intercept from this graph. You put the value of intercept, you get work function. So in this way, Planck's constant and work function we can determine from this equation with the help of graph. Graph is plotted between stopping potential and frequency, right? So after this, we discuss everything, each and every topic about photoelectric effect. Now radiation has dual nature of radiation. Already we discussed about wave nature in the previous chapter. Interference, diffraction, polarization, all these explains wave nature of radiation. And in this chapter, we find that photoelectric emission is the result of interaction of light with matter, and light always comes in the form of small bundles or packets of energy, that is called photon, and photon has some energy momentum. It means it behaves like a particle. So this photoelectric effect experiment shows particle nature of radiation, also component effect also shows. So from here it's clear that radiation has dual nature, two character. Sometimes it behaves like a wave and sometimes it behaves like a particle. So this is about dual nature of radiation. After this, nature loves symmetry. If radiation has dual nature, then matter has also must be a dual nature, right now? It means matter also behaves like a particle as well as wave. So we will explain that one with the help of Davisson-Jama experiment, and de Broglie give this concept, right? So please take a screenshot of this one first, then we will discuss dual nature of matter. Now dual nature of matter. We already discussed about dual nature of radiation. It has wave as well as particle nature, and nature loves symmetry. So de Broglie proposed the hypothesis that if radiation has dual nature, then matter has also dual nature. It means it has both particle as well as wave nature. So according to de Broglie hypothesis, a moving particle or moving matter has a mass, it means it has particle nature, but de Broglie suggested that it has some wave nature also, right? So according to de Broglie, a moving matter or particle has wave associated with it. That wave is called de Broglie wave, or you can say matter wave. It means when a particle is in motion, then it is always associated with some wave, and that wave according to de Broglie is called de Broglie wave or matter wave. If it is a wave, then it has some wavelength, and the wavelength of de Broglie wave is called de Broglie wavelength, and its value is given by lambda equal to h by p, or you can write h by mv, where p is momentum of the particle. momentum of particle, and h is Planck's constant, right? Now, how we prove this equation? So, I'm going to derive de Broglie wave equation. According to Planck's quantum theory, energy of photon is given by E equal to h nu, where nu is the frequency of photon. And from Einstein's mass energy relation, E is equal to mc square, where c is speed of light, m is mass of particle. From these two equations, we find that h nu equal to mc square, or you write nu is what? C by lambda. Frequency is speed by wavelength. You put the value of nu here, c by lambda. From here you get lambda equal to 1c, c cancel, lambda becomes h by mc, and mc is what? Momentum, right? Momentum of photon. So this lambda becomes equal to h by mc, or h by p. If v is velocity of any particle in place of c, then you can write lambda equal to h by mv, or h by p. This equation is called de Broglie wave equation, right? Lambda equal to h by p. From here, it's clear that p represents momentum, it means it represents particle nature, and lambda is wavelength, it represents wave nature. So this equation represents both particle nature as well as wave nature. There is a relation between particle nature and wave nature. So de Broglie just proposed that matter has both nature, dual nature. Sometimes it behaves like a particle and sometimes it behaves like a wave, right? So please take a screenshot of this one, then we discuss some of its property, right? Now, some of the properties of de Broglie wavelength. De Broglie wave equation is what? Lambda equal to h by mv, or you can write h by p. From this equation, it is clear that this wavelength is inversely proportional to momentum, or momentum is what? M into v. So wavelength is inversely proportional to velocity. If velocity is 0, it means wavelength is infinite, which is not possible. It means what? When a particle is at rest, it means no waves associated with that particle. This de Broglie wave only exists when the particle is in motion, when it has some velocity. So waves are associated with material particle only when they are in motion. If the particle is at rest, then no matter wave associated with that particle. This equation clearly explains if v is 0, lambda is infinity, which is not possible. It means particles always in motion, then only de Broglie wavelength, de Broglie wave exists. Again, if here it's clear that it is dependent on mass of the particle, it is independent on charge of the particle. So it only depends on mass, that's why these waves are called matter waves. It is independent on charge, so these waves are not electromagnetic waves, because electromagnetic waves are always associated with accelerating charge particle. So these are 3 or 4 points you just revise. Okay, now last topic of this chapter, last is de Broglie wavelength of electron. We already discussed about de Broglie wavelength, de Broglie wave equation. Now especially for electron, what is de Broglie wavelength? So you know lambda is equal to h by mv, or h by p. Now kinetic energy of electron is what? Half mv square. Now if you multiply 1 m numerator and denominator, then it becomes m square v square by m, and mv is what? P. So this kinetic energy K becomes P square by twice m, and from here P becomes root over twice mk. Now you put this value of P in this equation 1, this lambda becomes h by root over twice mk. This is de Broglie wavelength of electron in terms of kinetic energy, and you know kinetic energy what? E into V. E is charge of electron, V is potential. So this wavelength becomes h by under twice m eV. This one is de Broglie wavelength of electron in terms of potential. These two formulas are very important. These are very useful when you solve numericals. De Broglie wavelength in terms of kinetic energy, de Broglie wavelength in terms of potential. And you know for electron, mass of electron you know, charge of electron you know, the value of Planck's constants, you put all these values, you get lambda equal to 12.3 by root V angstrom. This is the wavelength for electron only. For electron, mass, put the value of mass here, charge of electron, you get lambda equal to 12.3 by root V angstrom. If you know this formula, you can directly find the wavelength of electron, right? So please take a screenshot of this one fast. Hope you understood this one-shot revision of chapter Dual Nature of Matter and Radiation. With this, I am going to end the class. Hope you like this one-shot series of class 12th physics. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. Okay. So till then students, keep revising and stay tuned with this channel. Thank you.